This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
All right, we're rocking and rolling here on a Friday, presented by PointsBet Canada. It's the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with you. Rosie, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Nothing, man. Just reading a couple tweets on this 1 versus 8 conversation that seems to be going on out there. I like it.
I think we're long overdue for a Rosie tweet segment. You've been tweeting up a storm the last couple weeks, buddy. What's gotten into you?
I don't know. Just putting my feet up. Got some things to say. Feeling like throwing some things out there on the wire. I was a little bit quiet yesterday. I was at work, so not a whole lot to say. But yeah, sometimes I get the old brain upstairs starts churning.
I noticed because with the new algorithm on Twitter, and you're new to Twitter, Elon Musk has completely fucked up Twitter beyond belief, but that's beside the point. With the new algorithm, I see whenever you message people or tweet to people. So that's why I'm starting to see your activity on my page. I guess they think we like each other.
Wow, I'm starting to get
That's
over
how I
the
feel.
waves, hey? It's neat stuff.
Yeah, you're starting to get into that algorithm on Twitter, and that's scary business for anybody who is following you around this show. Remember to subscribe, tap that like button, leave us a review wherever you're checking us out. At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Additionally, we're available wherever you find your podcast, so make sure you subscribe.
I love you, Dad.
So we can get paid. And Jay loves Elon Musk. And don't forget to visit LeafsNation.com for the very latest on all things Toronto Maple Leafs. Thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns. Drop us a line in the chat down below here on YouTube. And coming up in 10 minutes from now, TSN Hockey Analyst, former NHL netminder. You know how I feel about the show Overdrive on TSN 1050 and TSN. It's tremendous stuff with Noodles, the O-Dog, Brian Hayes, who we had on the show earlier this season. Jamie McLennan will drop by in about 10 from now, Rosie.
Yeah, that'll be nice, man. I enjoy that show too. It's one of the real true shows where guys can just sit down and bullshit about actual hockey, and it doesn't feel like a corporation's got them by the balls telling them what to say all day long. So it's a great show for that.
Well, that's the catch. They work for a corporation, but they're given some leash. That is for sure. With that in mind, let's get over the boards. By the way, I spoke to the Yaremchuk family. They would like to thank you personally for the shout out to Karen Yaremchuk on the show the other day.
Wow, I thought I was going to owe them an apology. That is good news this morning.
I'm being nice about it. I'm kidding. So a much better game last night. Obviously, we ripped the shreds off this team the last couple days. That performance on Long Island just wasn't good enough, but they responded. That's the most important part as we get closer and closer here to the Stanley Cup playoffs, Rosie. So many different avenues we can go, but to me, the major takeaway was Auston Matthews, man. That's as good as I think I've seen him all season long. That's one of his better efforts. I thought he was all around the puck, scores 2 goals, just the 4th time this season he scored 2 goals or more in a game. And that's the most encouraging thing to take out of that hockey game last night.
Yeah, he could have had 4, man. He looked like the Auston Matthews that can dominate the league. And he hasn't had a bad season by any stretch, but he hasn't been the guy that's just leaping off the page every single night. And last night he definitely did. And I think we have been saying for a long time, hey, no worries. We need him to just turn it up come the end of the season, going into the postseason. And apparently that's what he's doing because he's been hot for a while now. And yeah, I thought the game was good top to bottom, from the goaltender through the D and all the way up through your forwards and through the star players on this roster. It was a great bounce back game, which they tend to be pretty good at doing, don't they?
They do, and so this shouldn't be meant as a jab to Connor McDavid, but I know he's getting his flowers right now. He deserves it, but I thought it was intriguing that McDavid had 60 and 72, but here was Auston Matthews last year who had 60 and 73. It just shows you the excellence of an Auston Matthews when he's on top of his game, when he's producing, when he's scoring. I thought he was really engaged last night. And again, taking nothing away from Connor McDavid, he's by far the best player on this planet. But I just like the defensive game, too, how it's come together the last couple years for Auston Matthews. You know, looking back at last night, it's probably not so much about the 2 goals, but the takeaways defensively, man. He's so good with his stick.
Yeah, man, you're seeing him develop as a player and mature as a player. You come from those junior ranks in the program and these and that. And I mean, you need time to develop and to understand what it takes to be a pro and to be a leader. And I think he's figuring that out, and he's starting to round his game off a lot more than maybe he showed in the very beginning of his career. And that means you got to put a little bit of emphasis on defense. And I think he understood the shortcomings in the playoffs, and he's just got a lot of experience under his belt. He's growing as a player and maturing, and that's nice to see. And I think that helps to have some of the veteran presence around him to kind of show him the way, like a Johnny T type guy who seems to do everything the right way and is the consummate professional. And obviously it's rubbing off, and hopefully at the right time too, because if this team starts firing like they do like they did last night, it's exactly what Leafs fans want to see.
So many positives. There's no doubt about that from the game last night. Marner, Nylander, 1 goal, 1 assist. So a bit off the schneid for Nylander, who is pointless in 4 in a row, finally scores another goal. John Tavares, 3 apples. He was named one of the 3 stars in the game. Alex Kerfoot snaps a 25-game goalless drought. We sort of chuckled about it on the show earlier this week that the shootout winning goal against Ottawa was going to ignite him, but that has to feel good. I'm sure you've been in a slump before, right? On and off the field.
No, never. No,
Nice.
never. I was a point making machine, but no, obviously that was probably on his mind. And earlier on in the season, not too far back though, he was just snake bitten, like chance after chance. He was getting opportunity with the big boys on the top lines and was getting chances and just couldn't bury it. And I know, when that happens, when you get that look, you have a tendency to grip it a little more and think a little harder instead of just letting your ability take over and put it home. So it's nice to get that monkey off his back. He's had a pretty good week. I imagine he's feeling good getting that over, or that shootout winner earlier on, and then scoring yesterday to actually get the monkey off his back. So good day all around. I mean, after that absolute shitting the bed fiasco on Long Island, whatever you want to call it, that's exactly what they needed, is to respond, and they did it in spades last night.
And Matt Murray, too, I thought was phenomenal. Like, I was laughing, even the goal he let in the first period that barely crossed the line. It was actually an unbelievable save, but Matthew Tkachuk gets credit for it. So, like, dubs all around for the Leafs last night. Really, really good effort in Sunrise against the Panthers as the road trip rolls on now. 2 more back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, Carolina and the Nashville Predators. Speaking of which, dude, I can't believe it took 71 games. I was sort of bewildered to hear that statistic on TV last night. They finally got a 5-on-3. How does it take the Toronto Maple Leafs 71 games with the star power and the talent in that roster along that ice to get a 5-on-3? And it took them 30 seconds or whatever it was. Michael Bunting scores. Man, that's insane to me. How does that happen?
That is nuts when you think about all the, the teams you've been on and how often you do just get a 5-on-3, just the way it goes. I mean, a team's on the penalty kill and they're reaching a little bit and kind of desperate and running around out of position. It's easy to kind of take that extra penalty, although you should never do it. It definitely happens. And I can't believe it hasn't happened to that team. And to all the naysayers of the Maple Leafs that love to run their mouth and think that they get special treatment by the league is just fucking ridiculous. I mean, right now, I'm sure they're just plugging their ears, don't want to hear it. But I mean, I saw a tweet the other day too that was like the ranking in penalties, shorthanded play, or something to that effect of the Maple Leafs going back to like 2018, the last 5 years, and it's like 27th, 28th in the league, 30th in the league, like the top handful of the league in getting penalized, and people think they get special treatment. Just makes me shake my head. But there's another stat for you too. They don't even get a 5-on-3 until the last couple of weeks of the season. That's pretty wild.
You're pretty much Twitter guy at this point, and I'm not ref guy, by the way, at all. Like, I'm not Mr. Blame the refs every time you lose and every time you lose big in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But to me, it's inexcusable how, especially a team like the Maple Leafs, so speedy, so shifty, so talented, that it takes 71 games. I still can't believe it. I woke up today, I'm like, I completely forgot about this. There had to be a moment in this season, say against like a Columbus, where they get a 5-on-3, but no, 71 games without a 5-on-3, and credit to them, they cashed like instantaneously. But I just think it's so bizarre year after year after year. They're that team that people always like to chirp and shit on, but they never get those power plays.
Yeah, it is weird. I'd like to see the stats on other organizations, like if that
Yeah.
has happened in the past. I can't think of a team I've ever been on where you're going deep into March without a 5-on-3. The whole bloody 82 game season is insane. So, yeah, interesting
Yeah.
stat for sure. And it should shut the mouths of anyone who thinks that they get special treatment by the referees, because they just simply don't.
Yeah, it really is incredible. Let's ask today's guest, TSN hockey analyst, former NHL netminder, Alberta native. Rosie, you love that. It's Jamie
Mm-hmm.
Noodles McLennan. What's up, Noodles?
Not much. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic. I know you heard the tail end of that conversation, but do you have any explanation how it took 71 games for the Leafs to get a 5-on-3?
No, I actually don't. I heard that stat last night too, and I mean the amount of hockey I watch and the games I cover and the amount of teams that or rinks I've been in this year, it just kind of I feel like that's an outlier. Like it's a weird stat. I look at the way that the Leafs play too. They're not a very physical team. They're more. I mean, now actually they are, but let's go back to 4 weeks ago or less. They play more of a speed and kind of non-engaging game. For me, you would think that there'd be a penalty and they're on the power play, and then a tripping call or a cross-checking in front of the net down to make it a 5-on-3, or even somebody like even by accident. Okay, let's say they're on the power play and the defenseman goes to fire it off the glass and he fires it into the stands. Like it's not even a ref's decision, it's a black and white decision, like over the glass. Like, so that is a weird stat for me, that it took that long, because I don't know who's had the most. I don't know. I haven't dug into it, but you would think at least a handful of times, let's say 5 times in the season, you'd get a 5-on-3. So that one's a weird one. And yeah, they converted, and it was a weird play even leading up to it, because Bobrovsky makes the big left pad save on the back door, and then he gets run into by his own D-man, and then Bunting. I don't think Bunting got all of that. To be honest, I thought it was like he got lucky on that play, because he fires it straight. Now you want to fire it quick, but he fires it through Bobrovsky, where I would think if he had a clean shot, you'd probably want to elevate it on that play. But anyways, found the back of the net. They converted on a 5-on-3. And to answer your question, even by accident, they should have had a 5-on-3 somewhere along the line this year.
Noodles, bring us to the conversation that you're obviously very well versed in, but the goaltending situation in Toronto. What's been your take on it going back to the summer, getting these two guys, the way they've switch hit them, their play over the last little while, and now obviously a big step up game for Matt Murray last night?
I mean, I think I'm like everybody else in Toronto. You're concerned until you don't have to be concerned. So, the turnover of goaltenders, I had a spirited debate, put it that way, with somebody yesterday saying, you if it didn't work, you change and you change. Well, my question is, and I would pose it to everybody listening, and both you too, is we don't have the luxury of sample size with either guy. So I have a little bit more watching Ottawa. So I saw Matt Murray play the last couple of years. I've been an advocate of his. When he's healthy, he's a good goaltender. Like, you don't forget how to play goal. He's won cups. He's a good tandem goaltender. He's not a starter, in my opinion. He's a tandem guy who, his body breaks down a little bit. Like he's at the most, I think he had a 3-year stretch. It was like 49, 50, 49, something like that in Pittsburgh. But that's not really starter minutes. That's tandem minutes. Samsonov, most he's ever played in a season is 44. So you've got two guys with something to prove. Samsonov is 26 years old, and he's a high draft pick. I talked to goaltender coaches early on when he was drafted that they really liked his skill set. I think it took him a while to mature physically and mentally. Washington, there's a reason why they walked away from him. It might not have just been his play. There was probably some maturity issues there or whatever it is. But the point being is both of these guys were a reclamation project, we'll call it, because it was at Christmas that Matt Murray was on waivers in Ottawa the year prior. So my only thing, and I always come back to, and I know it's long-winded, is one word: trust. Because do you trust that will all come together at the right time? Where, for example, in other markets where you've had a tandem or you've had the goaltenders for more than 1 year, maybe 2 or 3 years, you go, I've seen the guy at his best, I've seen him at his worst, and now we just need him to play his best at the right time. Like even, Markstrom, for example, like I've watched Jacob Markstrom for years. So okay, there's a really good goaltender in there that's not having a great season. So when I look at Samsonov, if you haven't watched him in Washington and didn't know his body of work, if you're a Leaf fan, you're going, geez, I really like what I see this year. But again, it's on a sample size of 33 games, and that could change very quickly. So that's the only thing I come back to. I think both of them are really good goaltenders and capable of doing the work when they're healthy and when they're at the top of their game. But the question is, do I trust that can happen at the right time when it's needed? I don't have that answer for you. That would be my analytical breakdown, because I haven't seen Samsonov go through a stretch where it's like, how does this guy dig himself out of a slump? How does he respond to a bad game? I didn't love his game in the Island the other night, but you guys talked about it, and I listened to you earlier, where it's like you guys shredded them after that Island game. It stunk, top to bottom. You couldn't circle anybody who played well, including Samsonov. So how does he respond? He has 2 or 3 bad games. It was not that long ago, it was about 6 weeks ago, that both goaltenders were kind of struggling. And Samsonov was struggling. I don't know if Murray was healthy or whatever. And you're sitting there going, what the hell's wrong with the goaltending in Toronto? So I think it all comes to timing. And I just don't have a reference point other than what we've seen in front of us this year to go, God, I hope it all comes together at the right time.
And of course, one of the big conversations, as doing Overdrive on a daily basis, is the goaltending conversation, as we just referenced. Who starts game one? I almost ask you this, like, does it matter most, like, who's easier to pivot to? Like, in my world, and I know Jackie Redmond was on this show last week, and she made a really, really good observation and point. It's almost, in her opinion, in my opinion as well, easier to shift to Matt Murray than it would be like vice versa, where you start Murray and then you go to the unproven guy in Samsonov. Do you agree with that?
I think yes, on a couple different fronts. I just talked about the body of work. The more stable goaltender this season, as far as what we've seen consistently, has been Samsonov's body of work, because we had Murray not available. We've seen a couple dips in his play. There's been, if you had a chart, as O-Dog always talks about the graphs. If you had the graphs, the graph would go up and down with Matt Murray, where Samsonov, there was an injury, but to come back, he's been pretty stable. So in your mind, coming back to the word trust, I think you're like, okay, you kind of believe or know what you think you're going to get from Samsonov. And if not, you've got a safety blanket on a guy who's played at the highest level and exceeded the highest level, like that you believe that one of them can get it done. And I don't know if you could leave, which is a kind of a crazy theory, talking to somebody yesterday, like would Joseph Wall be a guy that you're just like, okay, like, if it's not working or whatever, like throw the rookie in there who's oblivious and just be like, let's see if this kid can go on a Binnington run type of thing. That's a far kind of conspiracy outside of the box theory. But, stranger things have happened. And when I look at it, and, you guys can probably cite other examples, sometimes ignorance is bliss. There's a reason why rookies in the league kind of have that kind of success out of nowhere, because they don't know the pressure. They don't know. It's just like, hey, I'm showing up. I'm in the NHL. I'm pretty excited. Like they haven't experienced years of like ups and downs and pains and crowd getting on you and stuff. It's just like, hey, I'm coming from junior. I'm coming from the minors. I'm pretty oblivious to what's going on here. I'm just going to play some hockey. I kind of think like Binnington did that from January on in St. Louis. Binnington's biggest problem, I think, in the playoffs that year was he had a racist tweet or something he had to deal with, like something ridiculous. Yeah, do you remember that? I think he had to answer for it on the morning of like, I don't know if it was cup final or semifinals or something. It was like somebody went back and when he was a kid and dug up a tweet about I don't even remember what it was, but they were asking about him. And he was like, yeah, mistake, all of that type of stuff. He wasn't even talking about his play. It was just like, hey, what did you do when you were 16, 18? So again, ignorance is bliss sometimes, but I would say Samsonov, you give him the net. If he falters, you got a guy who's been there, done that before. And I would argue probably if they do end up getting past Tampa, if they end up we're thinking Boston. If Boston continues on, like you might need both guys, to be honest. You might need both guys to get through, because we've seen tandems or one outside of the Vasilevsky situation. You look at cup winners. There's been two goaltenders that have actually started games.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, being as we've talked a lot on this show about how goaltenders just seem to not be able to even do back-to-back games, which is, I'm sure, is laughable to guys like you and the era that you played in. But if we do get in with, say, we start with whoever we start with, do you think there is a chance that if things go well, a one goalie could just play the entire series, or do you think there's no chance that happens?
Well, I think it should be, in my mind. If you've got a guy who's playing well and the team's playing well, rallying around him, this is the thing. And it's an analogy that was brought to me about football. It's like, if you have two capable quarterbacks, you really don't have a one. And what happens is, if one guy falters, everyone's like, well, you should have started the other guy. And that's what scares me about tandems. Because let's say Samsonov starts game one, plays really well, and they win. And then he struggles in game two. You know how loud it's going to be to go, we got to go the other guy because, boy, he stunk last night. But yet, Auston Matthews or Mitch Marner may have had an off night. They get to go right back on the ice next game. So sometimes when you don't have 100% faith in one, you're always second guessing that decision as to, like, okay, well, do you give that guy who had an off night an opportunity to make up for it, or do you go to the other guy and see if he can climb on top of it? That's the game within the game when it comes to goalies, and that's kind of scary for me. But I would like to see a guy go on a run and feel good. So you just go, that's our guy. And if he falters or and you know what it's like now in the playoffs, they're not back-to-back situations. And you guys are laughing like, yeah, do I know about back in the day? Kiprasov, 7 years in a row at 70-plus games. You look at my stats in Florida. Roberto Luongo, the year I backed him up, he played 75 games. I pretty much could have sat in a suit. I literally sat in a suit on the bench because I knew I wasn't going in. Like, that was like, that's a unicorn now. And even near the end of his career, I talked to Roberto about playing back-to-back situation. He said the game is so much more physical now. Like, as far as for a goaltender, it's side to side, it's in tight play, it's up down. So he said the recovery, he could never get back to 100%. Right in that back-to-back situation. He was talented enough to do it, to battle through to maybe a one-off here and there, but he couldn't do it. The only guy I could see that has like the strength, there's a couple of them. Vasilevsky can do it. Hellebuck can do it. And I think Markstrom can do it. These big goaltenders that have that physical strength, they can do that type of stuff.
Noodles, I still maintain we need a goaltending summit in this league because I don't know what's transpired with the position, but you do make some excellent points. The back end, what are your thoughts on load management? We saw Giordano sit, we've seen Brody sit, and why do the Leafs continue to win without Morgan Rielly in the lineup?
Because I think they're a balanced defensive core. It doesn't matter. Let's just say their pathway is Tampa, Boston. On paper,
yeah.
Those defensive core, both your opponent's defensive cores are better on paper. Doesn't mean that execution. But I mean, I watched Boston live the other night. If you believe Morgan Rielly's your number one, which we do, Morgan Rielly might be number 4 on Boston, behind Lindholm, McAvoy, and Orlov. I think there's an argument between Orlov and Rielly, but Orlov's a hell of a player. So you're going to do it by committee. Tampa, I mean, there's no Hedman. Now, I watched Hedman last night. He looks like he's laboring. His back looks like something's up there. So, he's going to probably try and conserve for health better more than trying to win games down the stretch here. But I look at their defensive core. Like, that Sergachev is a player. Chernak is a big meat. Like, they've got a really unique group back there because everyone plays a different role. Where I look at the Leafs, and you've got Rielly, you got Brody, who's a real stable guy who moves the puck, but he's not overly physical. He's just a really cerebral defenseman. You mentioned load management with Gio. I'm 51 years old. I played with Gio. Gio's 39. You need to rest him. And I love Mark Giordano. Like, he's a captain. He's a leader. He's an unbelievable person. But does he need to play, in every situation? No, he needs to play when it matters, and he'll come to play. He's a gamer. I'm not worried about him. McCabe, I think, needs to still settle in, find his game. There's times where I think he's trying to do too much. In the new situation, you're excited. You get a little horny. You want to be like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I think we just shrunk his game a little bit, and it's like, this is what I'm good at. He'll be fine. Liljegren, like that right side kind of always concerned me a little bit because, Hall, Liljegren's a guy, like, I don't know where his perfect placement is. And I know it's a great story. And Jay, I don't know if you played with him or know, Shan, like he's a great human, big mutant, but like, it's like, he's a 6. Like he's a 6 at best for me. Like, so I think they're going to do it by committee, and I'm fine with load management, but to me, Riley's got to be a big part of it because if he's going to chew minutes, he's got to be a guy who can advance the puck, get back to the puck quickly, and move it. I think their defense has to be like Pittsburgh's defense when they won, I think, the first time around without Letang. It's got to be by committee, move the puck quick, and just get it to people who can handle it. Like, just be nothing to see here, back out and go away type of thing.
We've been talking about that too, and I think the load management with like a Giordano, of course, makes sense. You want to keep him healthy, and a guy's body's not going to hold up like a 22-year-old's. But at what point do you think they need to start figuring out what they're going to move forward with in the playoffs? I mean, especially if they're playing, not great hockey, like say they were in Long Island. I mean, you're seeing a revolving door of defensemen. No one's got the same partner twice, and it's almost like the mistakes that were being made is like, are these guys gripping their stick saying one mistake and I'm going to be in the press box tomorrow? Not exactly instilling confidence leading into the playoffs. At what point do you think they need to start solidifying the roster that they're going to go into the postseason with?
I think it has to happen now.
Yeah.
I think the argument can be made is, you've got the luxury after the trade deadline to tinker with things. Again, I know I've beaten a dead horse here, but you watch Boston, for the most part, outside of injury or, guys being banged up and stuff like that, they all play with the same guys. You tinker a little bit. On a given night, if a guy's not going, you sit him down a shift, you move a guy up and down. That's game management, the game within the game. But like hockey is habitual, it's instinctual. So if I've got a defensive partner that has certain habits, you don't want to think about, okay, well, I'm with that guy, he likes to do this. Because the minute you start to think on the ice, you're screwed. The game's too fast. So I would like to see some stability where it's like, here's a 5-game segment. This is what the team looks like outside of sickness and injury, and have at it. Like, go. And then you start to tinker and go, okay, that matchup, they weren't going tonight. I had to pull this guy in and out. But like, for the most part, I want to see consistency because I see plays that are set plays, and pick your team. Colorado, even Edmonton. Like, I look at teams like that offensively, they got set plays where it's like, I just know where that guy is going to be. Well, defensemen need that too. I talked to Mark Mathot the other day. I had dinner with him in the media room in Ottawa. And I said, like, playing with different partners, how hard is it? And he goes, well, you're worried about your game, but you're also worried about what this guy likes, what he doesn't like, how he likes to be set up, how he likes to defend. So if you don't have that familiarity, now it takes away from your game because you're going, I got to worry about my game and worry about what's good for him. And I haven't played with him a lot. So I think, getting back to your question, you need to lock the roster in and have a run with these guys so that they feel comfortable and it's just second nature, habitual.
If they do that, I don't know what else we're going to talk about leading into the Stanley Cup playoffs because we like to make up stories this time of year. You know that, Noodles. Appreciate your time today, man. Never. No, because it literally gets to a point after the deadline, like people try to find a reason to bitch about this team, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the passionate part of this market. It's just like, I was arguing, I know we got to go. I was arguing with somebody last night. They're like, well, like Boston, you can beat them. And I'm like, okay, what? Well, they're due for something. And I go, what is that rationale? Due for what? Like, anyways, it just, how passionate this market is. I think it's awesome. And to your point, like, we do need to create things to get ourselves excited, because right now we're just waiting for the playoffs.
We are, and we're waiting for the Matthew Nyes conversation. I thought it was going to happen last night. Minnesota figured it out, and unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a bit longer. Noodles, thank you so much for this, and keep up the great work. We love your show, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. We'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
Take care. That's Jamie Noodles McLennan, one of the best in the business. Just salt of the earth once again. And just brings it. I love his takes, man. Like those guys, those three together are just so good. Like it's must listen for somebody who doesn't really watch that much TV. I make sure to tune in at some point in time between 4 and 7 Eastern time, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, we ran into time issues almost instantly, but it's a guest where you wish you had an hour and a half podcast, because you could just go off and switch hit takes and ideas and what's going on, and just wicked guy. We got to get him on again, but it shows you why he's on that Overdrive show and why it's having so much success, obviously.
Let's get now to the points bet wrap up. Actually, somebody writes in, wish Rosie would prop his head like one of those, prop his hat like one of those 18-year-olds. They do these. What's it called now? No, I made that up.
I got to float it. Floating hat.
Oh, dude, we were out in Edmonton the other day. Holy fuck. And maybe it was just the wrong bar to be at. But is that like hip? Is that cool now to have your hat like that?
Oh, yeah, you got to float it, and then you get the wings going out the side big time, which, I mean, grade 9, we had wings where I think we gel them out like this, but we didn't float our buckets too hard. So hopefully the kids are watching now and they think I'm wicked.
Yeah, wicked cool, yo. I would love to know a percentage of the males listening right now. How many of you at some point in time had wings? Like I experimented with that in college, 18, 19. You know, when they start to circle around, man, that was like, you thought you were king shit when you had the way. Like we've laughed at your pictures from Philadelphia where you had the long hair, right? I thought maybe you were trying to be Scott Hartnell or something.
I don't know what I was trying to do. No, I didn't have that curly red mop. It was a little different. Yeah. Sorry, Hartsy. But no, it's funny because I noticed, like, I remember being a kid and we had like baggy jeans or something. And my mom would be like, oh my God, everything's coming back to when I was in high school. And now that, 30 years later, I'm seeing, you go by a high school and people got the baggy jeans again, the long hair, like it's winged out the side. It's fucking hilarious. I love it.
Mood McVibes, that takeaway in the neutral zone where Matthews picked up, I think it was Duclair, made a strong play skating with a Panther riding him, was one of the best plays at that game. I couldn't agree more. Like Matthews defensively last night is what I noticed the most. Like all around, by far, pound for pound, his best game and best outing of the season, which is great news and a great development as we get closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Sean Robertson writes in, refs aren't immune to anti-Leaf bias. They're human, right? Okay, I get it. That anthem was a different story. We're not even going to touch on the national anthems last night, man. Holy shit.
You see that donkey tweeting beforehand going, got his shirt off, flexing like crazy, going, oh, I'm going to fucking better learn the Canadian anthem. Well, fuck. Less time taking selfies, bud. You got a job to do. What a donkey.
Man, I think... Like, I just think it's inexcusable, borderline inexcusable how you have an anthem singer and they can't nail the one thing they're sent out there to do, man. It's unbelievable to me.
When people get choked up or freeze, hey, shit happens. You're in front of 18,000. That's all good. But he knew he had that job for how many days and you couldn't figure that anthem and you're joking and tweeting about not knowing it and then you butcher it that bad. I don't fucking feel sorry for him at all.
No, it was a butcher job, and it was the brunt of jokes on social media, which sometimes you just love to see. Ryan also writes in, Ryan Sportsman, Rosie, we miss you in the Jersey Beast with some props. Mood McVibes, again, Murray showed flashes of better goaltending, but Samsonov has been healthier and more consistent. And a bunch of people want to know about Matthew Nyes. We're going to have that conversation when it happens, but Minnesota found their way last night. I believe they were down 2-1. They found a way to get the job done, I think ultimately winning 5-2 in that game. So, what a week in general, Rosie, as we get closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. A great stable of guests again with Ron McLean, Gord Stellick, and again today, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Got a back-to-back coming up this weekend. Carolina, the Nashville Predators, and the 5-game road trip's going to conclude. It sounds like Ilya Samsonov's not even there. He's pulling the old Luke Shen, waiting for the baby to happen back home. So I think we're going to see Joseph Woll this weekend.
Yeah, and I think Lafferty is it that's having his wife's due to have a baby right before the playoffs too. So a lot of pressure in the women department right now. They got to pump those babies up quick because we got Stanley Cups to win here. So come on, girls, don't wait, push.
I would love to know what that conversation would look like. Yeah, babe, can you hurry up? I need to go win a Stanley Cup. I don't know if that's going to go over well, Rosie.
Let's pump this thing out, ladies. You're part of the team now. Get that thing out of you.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Many thanks to everybody in the chat this week. You ripped it. You killed it. Our great guests, including today's Jamie Noodles McLennan, producer Alex, was fantastic all week long. And you, of course, Jay Rosehill. I know you're only here for 3 of 5 shows, but you're really exceptionally good in those 3 of 5 shows, okay?
Unprovoked attack. Wow.
Shots fired. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Monday. Take care.